Everything is fine here on Detention Block AA23, a Star Wars podcast. I'm Mike, joined by, hey, look, it's Zach. He's back. And Greg, of course. And here to talk some Star Wars. Just a reminder out there, we are live on YouTube, so bring us your comments, questions, everything, opinions to the chat, and we'll look to respond through there. How's it going, guys?
Going well.
Good,
yeah,
good.
Doing
Zach,
well.
tell us.
It's been a hot minute, but I'm back, so it's good to be back.
It's good to have you back.
Thanks.
I mean, I think you are the most intellectual when it comes to Star Wars of the four of us. So we were just treading water while you were gone. So we're lucky to have you back to bring us back afloat, especially when we dive into. We're going to go back and talk a little more about Ahsoka because we haven't had Zach's opinions and thoughts and everything on that. So we'll spend a good time of our podcast today talking through that. But we'll jump into some other things leading up to that before too. But yeah, so Zach, he was out for a while. He had a procedure on his mouth. So it's really hard to, podcast when you've just had a procedure on your mouth and along with every other craziness of life going on. So again, welcome back, Zach. Glad to have you back.
Yeah, thanks. Glad to be back, and also glad to be able to talk again. So that's definitely nice.
He was telling me about what all happened, like what was involved within the procedure, and oh my gosh, the word or the mention of blood came out, and I just wanted to pass out immediately. So, but
sorry
yeah,
for the graphic details there.
No, that's okay. I mean, I hear it all the time because my wife's a nurse, but that doesn't mean I can tolerate it any better. So, so before we dive into Ahsoka, Greg, you mentioned a little bit of a news bit that you heard. You kind of want to speak to it a little bit?
Yeah, so the past couple of days, Adam Driver, Kylo Ren, was doing interviews, and they had talked, he had mentioned like the original story arc for the character was supposed to, he was going to be more committed. Hey, Lincoln, how's it going? The character was supposed to be the most committed to the dark side, and that whole redemption storyline like never existed originally when he was pitched the character. And we kind of talked before hopping on here, that would have made for those three movies, like the story to be told, I think would have been a lot better for his character than what we got on screen.
And you guys were kind of alluding to the fact that probably happened because of the change of like directors, like J.J. Abrams not being able to, write the whole story out. And, we've talked about it plenty of times, even Rise of Skywalker was probably a way for him to get the story back in one way or another to what he wanted to tell, but just taking a kind of an alternative route. So yeah, I mean, that's unfortunate because to me, those kind of stories are a little more compelling versus, the bad guy coming back to the, the light side again. Yeah. Like we've seen that. We've seen
it.
We want full dark, but I know Disney might have a little harder time following through with that too.
Well, and you already had a redemption story within the first half of the first movie with Finn.
Yeah.
Joining and then all of a sudden, redeeming himself, and then the whole story. And that's another one that I would have loved to have seen his original story arc, because he was completely lost in Last Jedi. And that character could have been one of the best, Star Wars characters historically, not putting him on the pedestal of, Princess Leia and the originals, but his story would have been fantastic. And it just feels like a lot missed in that second movie. And, just got everything disjointed.
He was originally Force sensitive, right? We just didn't know it. That's my headcanon, at least.
Yeah, he's originally, and then like in Rise of Skywalker, they're like, they hint at it, and then they're like, oh yeah, that was supposed to be us telling you he's force sensitive. I'm like, oh, okay, thanks for that. Yeah. Thanks for explaining that to me after the movie.
Right.
That means he didn't give me enough in the movie.
Exactly. Do you think he's going to be returning in the Rey movie?
100%. Like I feel like he's one too where I agree like with Greg, like his storyline was such a bummer because like he was such a cool character in the first movie, and then his storyline just kind of, I felt like, slowly got hidden throughout the remaining two movies. And I think John Boyega has been pretty like vocal about that to the press, like that he wasn't satisfied with the storyline. I think a lot of fans weren't either. I wasn't. I thought like,
I agree with him.
Character. He's a fantastic actor. I love his character. Like it just feels like a really huge mess that they didn't do anything with his character. So I think the rumor is he's coming back for the Rey movie. Like I think like maybe he hasn't all confirmed that, but it's like a really strong rumor that I think he is like almost nearly confirmed.
Because didn't he originally
for that next movie?
Didn't he originally state that he didn't want to like ever come back to Star Wars again?
That was a couple years ago with like the fans.
He's kind of 180 on that now.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a lot of backlash like with the fans, and he was not happy. So he's like, screw it, I'm done. But I saw Daisy Ridley pushing hard for him to be in the Rey movie, and he's open to returning. So
yeah.
Well, and he should. And all you need to do is like look at Hayden Christensen's story. Even I'm spacing on his name, the actor for Jar Jar Binks.
Ahmed Best.
Yeah, Ahmed Best. Like, if you just focus on a majority of the fans who are very like, promoting of these characters and these actors, like, don't listen to the loudmouth few. Like, you've got a lot of support within the Star Wars franchise. It's just the toxic people that tend to scream the loudest. So we want all of it back.
John Boyega, if you're listening to this, you've got 3 fans at least here.
Yeah. You can come on the show too. Hey, we'll have you.
Yeah.
Or Ahmad Best or Hayden Christensen, all of them. How about all 3 at the same time? That'd
be great.
We might double our viewership that episode. But yeah, I am excited for that movie to come out. Is it the next story I would want to see? I don't know. There's a lot more I would be more interested to see, but I mean, it's still Star Wars content, and I am curious to see what direction they will take it. But I know they said the Skywalker saga is done, but you can't say it's done when the last Star Wars movie you had Rey exclaim she's a Skywalker, and then the next movie be a Rey movie. So it's like, all right, well, you're continuing the Skywalker saga. So, but again, I'm okay with that. I love just the core story that we have. I mean, going from the original trilogy to the prequels to the sequels. I love the High Republic, and I really love the Old Republic, and I would love to see more content in there, but I'm okay with the Skywalker saga as well. What about you guys?
I'm ready. I'm personally ready for some Old Republic if we're gonna like sort of say what we would want to see next. I mean, I personally like I'm a gamer, so I want to see a KOTOR adaptation. Like, that would be my number one. Like, I want to see some Old Republic, some Revan. Like, that would be really, really cool. And of course, the internet is going rampant with like, hey, what if Keanu Reeves was Revan? And
you beat me to it.
Love it. Yeah.
Can you imagine that?
Oh my God, it would be so good. So that's like what I would like to see. I'm a little burned out on the sequel saga just because I feel like, I've talked about on previous podcasts, some of my gripes with it. But like, I would like to see some more, maybe like Old Republic, High Republic era content start to come to light, especially even like the Phase 1 books in High Republic. Like, to me, I was reading these and I'm like, these should just be a show or something. Like there's enough good content there that I think it could be easily adapted into something cool.
We can avoid Phase 2 though. Let's go from Phase 1 to Phase 3.
Yeah.
What about you, Greg?
I, completely agree that, grab other aspects of Star Wars. The saga, you can always return to it at some point. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to strike while Daisy Ridley is still, close to the age that everybody recognizes and not wait, 20 years or, whatnot. So I would personally like to see that Old Republic. Um, I think a trilogy movie of that would be great. I would settle for an animated Disney Plus series. uh, I
As
just,
long as Dave Filoni's doing
well, yeah, but
it.
you talk about how
That's the new
fast.
rule.
That's it. As long as his fingerprints are on it.
Yeah,
But when
as long
we've
as
talked
Dave
about
Filoni
it,
has it, I don't really care what it is. That's the new
mm-mm.
rule.
But it's like how vast the galaxy is, and we're gonna stick to this little, small nugget of it. Give me some, Old Republic. The High Republic I haven't gotten into as much as you guys, but it sounds like it's kind of made for those like 8-10 episode Disney Plus, series. So branch out, and provide that type of content because it works. I mean, you look at Andor. It had, it ran kind of parallel to the Skywalker saga, but it was a great story by itself. And so that's what I'm hoping for is find those stories in Star Wars that maybe take place the same time as the Skywalker saga, but you're not dealing with the same cast of characters.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
to your point with like Andor, and I'll throw Rogue One in there too. Like, yeah, it's the same timeline, but it kind of is a different universe because you're focusing on like a different on like your average people. You're
Mhm.
not going into like the Jedi and the Sith and like something more darker and more powerful. You're just your average Janes and Joes, and uh, to me, that's a completely new universe and new story. So I think that's why it
Yeah.
worked.
Or give me some like I'm ready for especially after a lot of the Hayden Christensen commentary this past week around him wanting. I think he even there's some interviews that came out today where he was like really wanting. He's like, I want to come back and do more Star Wars. Can we just give him a Darth Vader show now? Like
It's going to happen.
I'm ready for it.
I mean, you throw that in with James Earl Jones giving the okay to use his voice for like continued content, like they're they have to have some kind of Darth Vader thing coming down the road, whether it's live action or animated. I don't know. Hopefully, it's live action with Hayden Christensen, but they could use his voice in an animation as well. But yeah, I also noted that he's returning to his old talent agency, which
Yep.
is independent artist group. So it's showing that he has that interest. He's not only talking about it, he's taking action in getting back into the whole acting realm. And I have to say, I think a lot of that is due to the positive reception that Star Wars fans have had with him like coming back. Like people had wanted that for a long time. And I think from all the criticism was the reason why he was staying away. And now he sees that, maybe he was listening to the wrong people or people are over that one way or another.
I was gonna
But
say you can't blame him. I mean, are you gonna, voluntarily jump right into the lion's den? Like,
right. And I think people started to understand that it's like it wasn't really him. He wasn't really being set up for success when it came to those movies, and a lot of that was dialogue and scripts and stuff like that.
And also being coached. Like, I mean, very clearly, I feel like George Lucas was coaching him to act that way.
Yeah.
Like, and I think a lot about the prequels, and like, a lot of people are like, "Oh, he was so cringy at times on screen." I'm like, have you ever seen an angsty teen in real life? Pretty much is like that. Like, so.
Well, and not only that, like
probably if you think about it, did a pretty good job of portraying that type of like that age and that sort of that material.
Well, not only that, but I would say if you look at almost any child actor that acts in any Star Wars movie that George Lucas was, owning, you're like, that's not really great acting at all. And then you watch like Little Rascals or Little Giants or something like that, and you're like, kid actors can be amazing. Like, why are Star Wars kid actors bad? Well, a lot of that was coming from, the top, how they're being coached and directed into their characters. So I mean, there were other movies that came out that Hayden Christensen was in not too long after Star Wars that his acting skills were definitely showing in those. So I think at that point it was just there was so much negative reception from the Star Wars movies that it just kind of pushed him away and pushed like that those ratings on him down a little. So
Yeah.
that's at least my opinion on that. But his returns in Star Wars, he's done a phenomenal job. Like in Ahsoka, holy cow! And we'll get to that here momentarily. And also, to Greg, what you were talking about in such a small galaxy. Now we're opening it up even more with the Ahsoka show, where we have another galaxy, which is just going to be a whole nother breeding ground for Star Wars content. I would have to believe, and we'll get that.
Hope.
We get to that in a second. I just want to ask Zach too, with the news of Dave Filoni and his promotion. What are your thoughts behind that?
I mean, my hope is that they continue to promote him to where he's just running Star Wars like that. It should be his job. Like he's very clearly was the closest to George Lucas. He very clearly understands it. He understands the story and what to do and what not to do. Like everything that he is heavily involved in has been really solid like Star Wars content. Clone Wars, Mandalorian, Ahsoka. I'm giving away my thoughts on the show a little bit there. So like everything he gets the story, and I think he gets what not to do with it. And like I feel like that's kind of a little bit of the knock on the sequel saga. Like I think had he been more involved in those movies, I think the story of those movies would have been better. Yeah, so my hope is that like they kind of put him more in charge, because there's some like I don't know if you guys have talked about the Taika Waititi stuff. Like I'm just kind of hoping that Filoni's into a position to sort of rein in the story a bit across the multiple projects that are going on, just so that it still feels Star Wars. Because I don't know, some of the Taika Waititi comments to the public have made me incredibly nervous. I'm like, why is this guy doing Star Wars movies? I don't know if I want him to do them.
Granted, can we take him for serious all the time? Because he is kind of a funny, goofy guy.
Yeah, he is out there, but like I think his last quote was like, "All the fans are gonna hate my movies." Like, oh no, this is not going well.
See, I see him as just like poking the bear with that. Like he's just kind of
probably
toying with us a little bit.
He's probably talking about that loud majority that chased off John Boyega and Hayden Christensen. Like, oh yeah, those guys are gonna just absolutely hate my movies. When realistically, 95% of Star Wars fans go, "We're good."
Right. Yeah. I think you pretty much spoke in line to what Greg and I were talking about. I think that was our last episode. It's great to have one person there to kind of oversee like a single vision, a single story. To your point, Zach, it'll kind of reel everything in a little more. The only hesitation, well, not the only, but one hesitation we had, and you kind of also spoke to it, as long as like, in my opinion, as long as Kathleen Kennedy is still there and kind of like Disney still owning the whole thing, it makes me concerned that they're not going to let him have the freedom to do what he could bring to the franchise. So I part of me is excited, and part of me is also like, this is them just kind of throwing a bone to fans to be like, you've been asking for this, like you've wanted this. We're not going to quite give them full reins, but we'll give them a lead in like the storyboard and everything.
Yeah, because it feels like, so I mean, that title, so if you're a chief creative officer, that means you're in charge of the story, you're in charge of the contents, and like the life show up in the world, like how does that get adapted in movie throughout the to your point, it doesn't necessarily mean he has the executive decision rights on greenlighting projects, financial decisions, things like that. That would be more like seemingly in Kathleen Kennedy's court. So I don't know, like I would definitely like him to have the most power over the future of the projects, like, but maybe he does need someone helping him with like the financial side of the movie studio, which is super fair. But like, to your point, like I do think that it needs to become less Disney-fied, for lack of a better term. And like, obviously with this promotion, I think it probably sparked more rampant rumors. There was all those rumors going on that George Lucas was trying to rebuy Star Wars Lucasfilm back. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I would be shocked if Disney sold Star Wars. Like, it's got to be one of their most profitable franchises in the entire company.
It's too much money.
Yeah. So I know that like a lot of fanboys are like, ooh, maybe they'll sell it or spin it off so that there's more, like, Filoni gets more control. But either way, like, I think this is a good thing for Star Wars to see Filoni more in charge of the content. Like, that's a good thing, because I think he deserves that for sure, given like his thumbprint and some of the best. I mean, his stuff has been the best stuff that Disney has put out. I mean, if you take away maybe Force Awakens and Rogue One.
Yeah. Well, and I would put Andor up there too.
Yeah, Andor up there too.
Mike, we had talked about it a little bit, but like with the stories, my fear, and with Disneyfied, my fear is that Kathleen Kennedy and Disney will continue to force certain stories to be told for the sake of selling the merchandise that can come along with it. And I just want Filoni to be able to tell the story that he wants to, and then Disney can come up with the the corresponding merchandise to accompany that those sales. Like, that's my fear, is that it's going to be merchandise driven on some of these decisions for the the sake of the story. And that's where, like you had brought up, if Filoni can have more control, maybe not over the financials and the budget, like fine, work that side out, but everything else creative that gets put out there, he has final say over.
Well, that was the rumor too, with like, I think you have a solid fear there, because like that was the rumor with Grogu, right? Like the rumor that ran rampant during season 3 of Mandalorian was that like Favreau and Filoni wanted the end of Grogu's story to be he goes off with Luke and that's it. And there was executives at Disney that were like, no, you can't get rid of Grogu. He's our merchandise king. So you have to keep him in the story. And so I think that's why I felt like Mandalorian season 3 was weaker, because I didn't think they knew what to do with that character. Like, because I think the original plan was like, ship him off with Luke. He's going to go off with Luke. But there was other powers that forced Grogu back into the storyline for the sake of toys and merch and etc.
Well, and wasn't there even indication, like, was it from Jon Favreau, or I don't think it would have been Dave Filoni. Maybe it was Jon Favreau.
I think Favreau had made some kind of veiled comments that basically
I think he made a veiled comment about it. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, well, I'll ask you, Zach, what do you think would have been a better story, where Grogu ends a story where potentially it was originally intended and he's with Luke Skywalker in, the new Jedi Academy, or bringing him into where he's at now?
I think the original story would have been better.
Oh yeah.
Like keeping him with Luke. And even if you want to bring him back, just leave him somewhere else for a whole season, or like do what they did with the Book of Boba Fett, which like the 2 best episodes in Book of Boba Fett were just Mandalorian episodes. Like, just put those episodes into the Mandalorian and like be like, hey, he's training, like, and like tease him into the season a little bit, like, but don't focus on him in the story. So like, I think that would have been way better. And like, and then to have Grogu leave Luke, but have him come back a little more trained. That would have been really cool. Kind of like that when the Mandalorian needs him for the battle of either the Battle of Mandalore, or like maybe even beyond that into season 4, like have Grogu come back for that. Like that,
or the movie they're planning on, like bring him back for that movie portion of it and have him play a role in that.
Heir of the Empire.
Have him use the Force to save Mando somehow,
or something. Like, that would just seemed like it would have been a better story. But I understand, like, financially why they would think you got to have Grogu in it, because it's merchandise. But, going back to what you were talking about, Greg, I mean, is it a chicken and egg question? Because, like, if you bring in new original content, I almost think you'll do better in merchandise sales, because you're expanding into a whole new, realm. I mean, you've got your Star Wars loyal fans. I mean, the people that are buying the merchandise have probably are the same ones that have been buying the merchandise for a long time. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be real. And so if you bring a whole new line of material and content, that's whole new merchandise that people will gravitate towards versus continuing on to something you have. Like, how many different versions of like a Grogu Black Series 6-inch figure are you going to continue to buy?
Yeah, but the thing with Grogu is that he has such wide appeal outside of Star Wars fans. Like,
yeah, well, that's
that
true.
He sells like pillows and T-shirts and stuffed animals, like, to very non-Star Wars fans. Like, I think that's why they're like, we need this character still relevant.
No, and that's absolutely true, and that's to the point of why they would keep him in and continue to get that revenue. So, is it kind of similar to like meshing in Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce to,
oh yeah,
singer and NFL?
Yeah.
No, we won't get into
that. The NFL could have hoped for was Taylor Swift this year.
The worst thing for fans to hope for.
That was fun.
Hey, we gave her first loss to a game that she went to. So.
We did.
Yeah, and then she backed it up again like last week.
But the next week.
Yeah.
I
don't know, real quick though, to her credit, like she didn't, she came out and said she didn't realize like how many times TV was, which I completely get. Like, she's there to watch the game and watch like a normal person, and the media is the one that is 100%. Creating. So not going to completely,
no blame should go to Taylor Swift or Travis Kelce. Like, they aren't the one. They're just going about their lives. It's not their fault.
No, you can throw some at Travis, but I don't know why, but you can.
That Packer game was very star-studded. It was Taylor Swift, Simone Biles, Tony Shalhoub was there.
Yeah,
like, that was pretty cool. And then Liv Morgan, for you WWE fans, she was also there.
Well, she's a Packer fan, I think.
Oh yeah,
I think so. It seemed so to be. Yeah,
according to X, formerly Twitter, what have you. I guess there were posts that she had like toured Lambeau and was wearing Packer gear. Tony Shalhoub grew up in Green Bay, so he's been a Packer fan forever.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's from Green Bay. I didn't know
that's pretty cool.
And then Simone Biles is obviously married to the Packers. So
yeah. Well, there was you could play a drinking game during that, and it was whenever they show or reference Taylor Swift or Simone Biles, you had to take a drink, and if you did that, you probably weren't standing the next day. But we'll move on from that. Let's kind of segue over to Ahsoka. Again, as I mentioned when we first started, just kind of want to get Zach's opinions, thoughts, everything. We've already talked about Dave Filoni, and obviously he had, huge influence on this because he wrote it. How did you feel it ended up, and either received by you, received by fans, or we'll just start holistically first, like your thoughts on it?
Yeah, and like I'll be honest, like I didn't really pay a lot of attention to the fan reception outside of the big moments that people got really pumped about. So I haven't really read a lot around like, did people like it or not? I'll tell you, my opinion was like, I liked it overall. I thought it was a good show. Like, I enjoyed it. I have a couple like minor things, like, and that has to do more with the ending and like the separate universe thing. Like, I sort of feel like they did that almost, like, I feel like that to me felt like very forced, because they're like, okay, we very realistically have a sequel saga and we can't have Ahsoka just hanging out in the normal universe because she would have helped Rey.
Yeah,
like I felt like that was a very lazy, like, okay, we got to put her somewhere else.
So loophole filler.
Yeah, so that we can like close this like random loophole. And I'm like, fine. What I did, I mean, first of all, Thrawn. Like,
thank God they brought him back.
The casting. Love the character. I'm so pumped he's in live action. Like it was just the perfect like introduction of that character. I'm very excited to see what they do with him like next. Like that's what I'm more pumped about is because he wasn't in it like a ton. And so I'm like really excited to see what they do with that character into whatever, either it's Ahsoka season 2 or the Heir to the Empire or whatever they're building towards. Very, very into what they did there. Um, and then like since we're kind of on the topic of villains, Baylan Skoll, um, he's probably like the best villain in Star Wars sequel saga history, I think, in my opinion. Yeah, like Thrawn to me is not really that because he's in Rebels and he was kind of
That's
already
fair.
introduced in other stuff. I think he's the best villain character that I've seen them adapt as a new character. Like I loved Baylan Skoll. He was the one that kind of like I was super captivated by his character. He kept me wanting to like figure out like what is his motivation, like why is he doing the things that he's doing, what is he trying to accomplish. I still don't have those questions answered, but it like compels me to want to watch and consume more. And like that's perfect. Like I love that they did that with that villain because like I very clearly, and I don't know what you guys think, feel that he is almost being set up as like an anti-hero type character, like where he's going to have sort of this villain arc and then he's going to probably flip at some point. But
Well, as you were talking through that, I was going to ask you a question like, is he a villain?
yeah, I don't think he's a villain. Like, I think he's set up as a villain in the first season. I don't think either of them are villains. Him and his apprentice, they're very clearly like, and it just gets me excited because I'm like, oh, are they doing Gray Jedi? Are they doing this like sort of pseudo, not light, not dark user? And that gets me super pumped. Like that maybe these characters are a little more dark side, but they're not pure that. And I felt that throughout the entire show, like that they weren't really. And I think they intentionally said before the show that their lightsabers are not red, they're orange.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was interesting. Yeah, he was awesome, and I'm very, very sad that the actor died. So I hope that they recast him with someone else.
They have to.
I feel like they have to because like that character is so good. Like, why would you just write him off?
And they can't just like substitute it to like animation to finish off that story. You just can't.
No.
You've put so much stock in it already and so much fan interest. I mean, because I echo everything you say. He's by far the most interesting character that we've seen in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I say interesting because to your point, like we don't know where he's going or what his motives are or anything. And it's really, and it's just super fascinating. Like some of the lines he would say, because obviously you're kind of looking at him from like a dark side lens, but then he also has this like clear respect and admiration for like the Jedi and life itself. And you're like, okay, so what are you getting at here?
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because Thrawn is kind of the same way too, in terms
Thrawn
of like
similar.
his motive isn't just to like kill people. He wants to save lives as many as he can too. Even in the Ahsoka show, he was like, we don't need to risk any more soldiers if we don't need to. So
yeah.
But going back to Baylan Skoll, like by far the most intriguing character.
Yeah.
And
he might be the best character in anything Disney's put out.
Yeah.
The best new character. Like, I find him like maybe him and Kylo, like maybe you could argue for Kylo Ren. Like I put him up there with the sequel saga characters, like with Finn and Rey and Kylo Ren. Like I think he's just super captivating. Now, I reserve that to change that, obviously, to see what they do with him. Like I'm just it's to the point where it's like I'm very intrigued by him, but I'm not sure what they're gonna do with that character yet.
So what do you think if you had to put a bet on it? What is your headcanon or vision on where you think his story will go? Because obviously they're giving some indication to the Mortis gods.
Mm-hmm.
So
I hope they're doing with him what I wanted them to do with Luke, which is he's trying to actually find a way to break the cycle of light versus dark, and that's his mission. So he's trying to find this planet to basically find a way to balance the force indefinitely, or at least to find a way to sort of keep it in check. That's sort of what I was like, my hunch why he's doing what he's doing, but I don't know. And that would be cool. Like if that's what he's trying to do, I could totally see like that's going to be like him and Ahsoka's maybe like joint arc, like which would be very, very interesting.
Well, and it makes sense because he even says like that the cycle needs to end or something along those lines. So
Ooh,
that
here you
makes
go. Screen Rant, top 10 potential ideas to recast Balin.
okay.
Numbered, and I don't know if these are like their rankings. I saw
one of these, and one of them is really good.
Yeah, I don't know if these, just these are random order for me at least. But starting off, Jeffrey Dean Morgan from The Walking Dead.
Yep, that'd be good.
Jean Reno.
Yep, John Reno.
Liev Schreiber. I could never pronounce his name. But he knows who he is. Kurt Russell. That nosedives. I just think Kurt Russell.
I kind of like Kurt. I kind of like that. Russell.
I don't know. I just picture him from Guardians of the Galaxy. That character,
or Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, I mean, he's great, man.
Oh, he's a great actor.
Yeah, loved him.
So good. Like I think he could actually
Miracle.
Off, actually,
he probably could. He's a great enough actor. He probably could.
Gerard Butler.
Okay.
Russell, I like that.
Russell Crowe.
Okay. Too costly. They can't afford it.
I don't like that. Yeah, that'll never happen in Star Wars. Russell Crowe will never do a Star Wars movie.
I can't see him doing a Star Wars.
Viggo Mortensen.
Okay.
Ooh, I really like that. But Viggo Mortensen hasn't been in anything in a long time.
No.
Part of it,
hey, there's a tie-in though.
The picture that they show though doesn't have a beard, and like that's like right away I'm like looking and being like, okay, how does the beard come?
That's Aragorn, right? From Lord of the Rings.
Aragorn.
Okay.
Aragorn, yeah.
Or Aragorn. So isn't Ahsoka supposed to be kind of like a
Gandalf the White? Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to like mimic that kind of whole story. So hey, there's a tie-in there. Make it even more about Lord of the Rings.
Well, speaking of Lord of the Rings, Graham McTavish. He was in the Hobbit series, but still, same universe. Liam Cunningham.
Too young.
He played Davos in
Liam. Yeah. Never mind.
Yeah. And the last one is Vincent Regan. He's been in Troy 300, Clash of the Titans.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I think Viggo Mortensen might be my favorite of that.
That would
list.
probably be my favorite. And it's not like he'd be more affordable, and he's still a great actor.
Yeah. I like Jeffrey Dean Morgan too, but I think Jeffrey Dean Morgan just tends to play roles a little more comedic. And like I feel like I guess I take that back.
I think Shriver too on that.
Yeah.
Who do you think looks the most like him?
I like a lot of the other people that are on that list.
Who do you think looks most like him? And do you think they would do like deep fake with it, or do you think they would just? They probably wouldn't do deep fake.
Recast. Yeah. Who looks like Ray Stevenson?
Or hey, they got another route they could take. I mean, if the Mortis gods are there, maybe he gets like deformed by the Force, and they have to do like a lot of makeup on the face, and then you can use almost anyone. Go the Emperor, go the Palpatine style.
Yeah, but
yeah, I mean,
going back.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, but to that point, I mean, he's going to have to be recasted. So
yeah,
it's in my eyes, it's inevitable. He's going to come back. Not him personally, but his character. Okay,
and I was just going to say, like, going back to it, like I felt. That's why I feel like. I say villain. He's clearly a villain in the first season, but I feel like he's got a very clear anti-hero arc coming. Because he very clearly like did not want to kill Ahsoka, or at least felt that way. Like he was just sort of defeating her to like get her out of the way versus like actively trying to kill her. Then I felt that same vibe with the Apprentice and Sabine. Like I kind of felt like they had obviously like the big clash throughout the whole season, but towards the end of it, I kind of felt like that lightened quite a bit, and I'm like very intentionally, where they're kind of setting both those characters up more as anti-heroes. So I think that'll be kind of interesting to see where they go with that. Then obviously, probably the best part of the entire series, the Anakin sequences. It's
Going back to the
so
Clone
good.
Wars.
Yeah, like he's just like they're well acted. Like Hayden Christensen nailed it. Like they're very well acted. They're so cool. That she's like back in the world in between worlds and like fighting, and then he's taking her through all these different parts in her history, and then phasing in between Anakin and Vader. Like that's so awesome. Like just the cinematography of that sequence was so cool. That episode is by far the best. I think the best episode of the whole show. Just with all that they did there. That also left me wanting more though. I wanted to see more of that, like more of Anakin in it. Which
Do you think it was
actually what?
Do you think it was actually Anakin there, or do you think it was a vision? I would have said a vision until they showed him again at the end.
Yeah, I think it actually was Anakin there.
I think so too. With showing his Force Ghost at the end, to me, it was just an indication that he actually was there.
Yeah, which is also brings up some interesting questions. Like, now that Anakin is dead, is he fulfilling his purpose from the original Mortis trilogy in Clone Wars? Like, is he like basically in the world between worlds, trying to like basically operating as balance to the Force? Which is kind of what they allude to in the Mortis trilogy, like that he's the chosen one who's meant to bring balance. Which I think if you go back through the whole saga itself, he actually does bring balance. Like if you think about it, the Jedi are very overloaded and too heavy lights, and then he brings he overcompensates by bringing heavy dark. And at the end of Return of the Jedi, he sort of brings it full back into balance. So he actually does fulfill that purpose, which, you know, the prequel saga alludes to a lot of like maybe misread this prophecy has been. I think that's what they were alluding to, is that he's going to do that, but he's going to do it in a way that's not what you'd expect. So I don't know. I generally like the show. It brings up a lot of questions. It's like I guess I did hear some of the knocks on like the acting, like Sabine's character. Obviously my gripes with it were like, yeah, let's just kind of do away with the lightsaber through the gut, like the gut thing. Because like when that happened, obviously I saw all the Liam Neeson memes, like, what about me, man? Like all these memes started coming out about like everyone keeps living through these lightsabers through the guts except for Liam Neeson's character. Which is true. I think like we should probably just stop doing that. Like if you want, there's other ways to accomplish the same thing.
Yeah.
I didn't think I didn't have any knocks on the acting. Like I didn't think that they were bad in any stretch of the imagination. Loved the reunion between Sabine and Ezra.
Ezra.
Yeah. I like Ezra, especially like maybe not right away in Rebels, but like towards like as that character grows, like Ezra is one of like I love Rebels. It's one of my favorite pieces of Star Wars content. And so I'm glad that he's back. I thought it was cool that he was like not using a lightsaber at first. Like that was kind of cool to see, kind of the like his like Force powers that way.
Kind of fits his personality too.
Yeah.
Like I don't need his lightsaber. I'm just gonna use the Force.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I think my biggest knock is just the other galaxy thing feels so forced to set up to basically keep the characters like I'm fine that they did it because like of course the end of Rebels it made sense. Like they sent Ezra and Thrawn
Yep.
away somewhere that they didn't interfere with the OT. Um, but like I felt like it was kind of like a little lazy to be like, okay, Sabine and Ahsoka are just over here now, and like Ezra's coming back with Thrawn and and there's going to be this big thing. Like I just felt like it was a way in which they're just going to leave those characters there, and maybe not. Maybe they'll bring them back and sort of explain why they're gone within the sequel saga. But my concern is they're going to try and fit this like cool potential story that they have into the sequel saga where they're like, okay, well, we have to like kill all these characters off or send them into other galaxies so they're not here when the First Order arrives. It's like, just let's just have some fun with this and not be constrained by the sequel saga is like my biggest thing.
I think they'll come back. Like going back to the parallels with Lord of the Rings, because even the secret title of this was what was it? It was Gandalf's name. What's his name in Lord of the Rings? Like
which Mithrandir?
oh, that's no, it's not that one. I'm totally spacing. Anyways, there's parallels to Lord of the Rings, and even throughout the show. So what if this new galaxy is like Gandalf falling through the fire to the Balrog, and then he kind of dies there, and then he returns back to Middle Earth as like a more powerful Gandalf the White now. And it's kind of interesting too, because when you go back to Rebels, when that show ended, she was in a white cloak. But when they started,
she already had that arc. She like because she was saved by Ezra in the World Between Worlds.
Well, and they even said how the show started is that same exact time period from the end of Rebels. Like they were trying to mirror that whole thing, but in the show she was wearing gray again. So they're alluding to the fact that she hasn't fallen yet, and in the show they're probably going to go through it, and maybe this new galaxy is that fall, and maybe this new galaxy is like those undying lands. And then if you go back to Lord of the Rings, at the end of that show, Gandalf goes back to the Undying, or well, no, he goes to the Undying Lands with Frodo.
With Frodo.
Yep. So I wonder if it's going to kind of mirror something like that, and the Undying Lands being like the Mortis trilogy, becoming gods.
Yeah.
And because in my interpretation, and Greg and I think we were talking about this, of who was actually like calling to Balin Skull, and I feel like it's the brother. I know people were saying it's Abeloth or like the father or something like that, but I think it's the brother, because I feel that way. If you look at those statues, the daughter's head is cut off.
Yeah, the daughter's dead. Well, and she dies in the Mortis trilogy, doesn't she?
Yeah, she dies in the Mortis trilogy. Well, yes and no, because she is the owl now, isn't she? That follows.
That's right. She gets like fatally wounded, but she like then transforms into
and she transfers like herself into Ahsoka as well to save her. So I feel like Ahsoka is going to come in and replace the daughter, and Anakin is going to come in and replace the father, and they're both already on there or in this new galaxy. And then now Balin Skull is here, and something's calling to him from that whole statue or mountain from a distance when he's standing on that statue. And I feel like it's the brother, because he's still alive. He's the only one of those three that still exist. And he was in rage, and he was really upset at his sister from the Mortis trilogy. So that's why I think the head is decapitated from those mountains, because he, I think, destroyed it. And something's going to happen, and Balin Skull is going to like, I don't know if he's going to kill him. I don't know if he can be killed, or something similar to Ahsoka and the daughter happens with Balin and the brother. I don't know, but that's just the direction I think that's all going.
Could be interesting,
but I'm probably totally wrong, but that's what fascinates me about that. Yeah, I had no problem with the acting. The dialogue from the first couple episodes kind of was a little rough to me. Obviously, they were trying to play on the tension between Ahsoka and Sabine, but I think they were kind of
Yeah.
laying it a little too thick there because
Yeah.
one person would say a line and then there'd be like a 3-second pause, and then the next person would say a line, 3-second pause, and it just kept going back and forth. So it felt really awkward. Again, I think that was intentional, but just kind of hard to watch. And the only other thing is I do feel like Balin's story towards the end of the show, or at least season 1, kind of faded off a little bit.
That's true.
Watching that last episode, I was wondering if we were even going to get Balin in that episode, and we finally did, and it was just him standing on the outstretched hand of the father. So
yeah. Now I will say one of the gripes I do have is I was kind of okay just not having Sabine have force powers, like, and just being Sabine from Rebels. I do feel like her being a force user is a little forced for little play on words there, I guess.
Didn't.
But yeah, I get what they were going for there, like, because George Lucas has said in interviews, like, the force is like yoga, like, if you practice and continue, like, obviously there are people who have inherent ability to tap into it and are stronger, but anyone can use the force. That was like his idea of, like, if anyone were to focus on it and try, they could use it, just they wouldn't be super proficient or strong in it. And they kind of showed that with Sabine, but I was kind of like, like, I'm kind of okay with her just being like a badass Mandalorian with like 2 blasters and just her doing that route. Like, why does she need to be Ahsoka's Padawan? But, well, we'll see where they go with it. I'll reserve my judgment on that until, like, I see more of that story play out.
Yeah. Just going back to guessing, do you think it'll play out that way? Do you think she'll be a powerful Jedi?
No.
I can't imagine that happening either.
Yeah. I think she'll just be kind of what we saw in the show. And I'm like, well, then just don't give her force powers.
Right.
Like,
the only way for her to really
not
tap into the
necessary.
force would be on the dark side, because she'd get so frustrated about, like, that's where she would find that avenue to be able to really tap in would be through, the dark side. So maybe they're going to do that. Maybe Sabine falls, but the backlash for that, I don't know.
I
I wouldn't want to be Kathleen
like,
Kennedy.
In the finale, I guess you do see her, like, do the huge force jump. Like, okay, like, she's getting stronger, so maybe they'll do it. But, like, I don't know if I really like it. Just that story felt really forced because, like, very clearly in Rebels, she's just not a force user, and, like, she never really showed interest. I mean, I guess she trains with a dark saber, but, like,
but that's not necessarily force related,
right? But you would think, like, she's training with Kanan Jarrus, like, you'd think some of that stuff would come out, or he would start to, like, try encouraging that. So it just felt a little weird.
Well, if I recall, that was one thing Dustin was talking about that he had a gripe with. More specifically, I think it was that last episode where at one moment she can't even really, like, grab the lightsaber, and just a few minutes later in the episode she's pushing Ezra all the way to the ship. So it's like, in that short amount of time, like, how did she all of a sudden just discover to use that much of a force power? So
yeah,
it definitely felt a little forced, as you mentioned, and a little rushed for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing with sequel.
It did bring out some.
They keep doing this where they're like, oh, suddenly these force powers just emerge, like that happened with Rey in Force Awakens, and, like, it's happening in this, and, like, in none of the other content before that is that's not how the force worked.
Right. Well, and Rey's is a little more understandable. I feel like Rey's was probably always there, just she wasn't really in tune with it. Sabine's was not there in the first place, but I did find the humor in what was the droid's name again? The one that's as old as the Old Republic from the Ahsoka show.
Oh yeah.
One of my new favorite droids now.
Yeah, he was great. I'm glad that he was in it. Like, he was really fun.
Hu Yang.
Yeah.
I loved his comment to Sabine when he was like, "You're like one of the worst," or "You are the out of
Yeah.
all the Jedi,
You are the worst.
you have the worst power."
Yeah. You are literally the worst Jedi. You would not have been trained.
No. What a great droid. That was another big win I felt out of this show.
Yeah, he was good. He was a good addition.
But I think the show also just shows, what happens when you actually invest into good actors. Because we're talking about, Balin Skrull. Like, he's a prominent actor that has done major stuff in a lot of movies. And if you go back to,
Ray
if you go back,
Stevenson? He's awesome.
And if you go to Andor, all the prominent actors in that and how well received that was. So like, if you just invest into those good actors, spend the money at Disney, you have the money. Like, it shouldn't be a problem for you. Make that investment and things get received very well. So where would you put this show with all the other shows?
That's a good question.
We'll first do live action and then we can throw in the animated if you want as well.
So, how about I just rank it with the Disney show, like of the Disney stuff?
Yeah.
It's probably this is tough. So I feel like for me, it's like season 1, season 2 of Mandalorian are probably the top for me in the Disney content. Then Andor. Then I think it would be this next. It'd be like solidly number 3. Then probably Obi-Wan. Then every other non-Disney, every other show on television, and then Book of Boba Fett would be way at the bottom.
Where's season 3? Where's season 3 of Mandalorian?
Season 3 of Mandalorian would be below this. It'd probably be I liked season 3 of Mandalorian. I know a lot of people didn't. It'd probably be below Obi-Wan. I actually also liked Obi-Wan. A lot of people had problems with that. There, like, Obi-Wan has its problems, but I generally liked it.
Yeah, agreed.
But everything's better than Book of Boba Fett.
I just wish
you take the Mandalorian episodes out of that show, and that show is just not even worth it.
I don't know. I really like the first 2 episodes. That whole story with the Sand
Tusken
people,
Raider.
or the Tusken Raiders. That's where they should have focused that show on. Like, that was so well done.
That show gave us with like Tamura Morrison on the doing this.
Oh
on the speeder. That was pretty fun.
What were you gonna say, Greg?
No, it started out really good. I enjoyed in the first episode, like, it was kind of real quick, but how he got out of the Sarlacc pit and touching on that, but not really focusing on it. Just like, here's how we got out and moving on. And then, the Tusken Raider, and you had what seemed to be a really good story that they're just like, yeah, we're done. It's like, you see like the meme of the horse drawing where like the back end or whatever, like half the horse is like, wow, art major, fantastic. Then the other is kindergarten stick draw. That's what it felt like, was like those first 2, and then the Mando, season 2.5 episodes, were great. Then you had, stick horse for the rest of it.
Stick horse.
Oh, that's completely accurate.
And then not to mention the Vespa scenes where they're going like a mile an hour. It's like, when they were showing that on TV, I'm like, man, I think I could run faster than those things are going right now.
You half expected someone to just walk by with like a cart going, what are you doing?
What's happening here?
I sent that clip to my brother a while back. He likes Star Wars. He doesn't watch it as much as like we do or anything. I think The Mandalorian season 1 and 2 is all he's really seen of the shows. But I sent him that scene, and he started cracking up. He's like, "What the heck is this?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "This is the Book of Boba Fett."
Yeah.
Who directed that one again? Was that
Rodriguez.
That was Rodriguez.
Yeah, who I like I like I mean, outside of his Spy Kids movies, like I like it. You know, he did. I mean, he's like Desperado, Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Um, like those old '90s, like those are amazing movies. You know, he did like one of the Grindhouse movies with Quentin Tarantino. Like, generally, I'm a fan of his stuff, but like they announced he was doing Star Wars, I'm like, this seems like a mismatch, and just his style in Star Wars is very weird.
How do you think
I guess I get what they were going for, like with where like, you know, he does a lot of like crime grindhousey type stuff, and it's a good fit with Boba Fett, but I just felt like a weird fit to me.
I just want to be in that like film editing room and being, you know, going through this and being like, oh man, how do we even make this work? Like, how are they even okay with releasing that in like a chase scene?
Yeah.
I mean, I think in season 3 when of Mandalorian, when Mando and Bo-Katan are chasing after the droid, they're going faster in that than those people were in those Vespas. Oh man.
So bad.
Well, it's just unfortunate because Boba Fett was such an intriguing character.
He's such a good character.
Yeah, and he still is. And I honestly, I don't have no issues with him or like his character in that show, like becoming a crime lord. That's pretty cool too. But just how they played out that whole show beyond the first couple episodes, and those Mando episodes, I have to believe those were just done to get Grogu back to Mando, to go against what potentially Favreau originally and Filoni originally wanted, because Filoni worked on that too, right?
Yeah, I think so. I like those episodes though. I'm like, just save that for season 3. Like, we didn't need that in Book of Boba Fett. That to me was like, we don't have enough content for Book of Boba Fett, so we have to do these 2 episodes. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, like all of a sudden entered mini series that they brought in. But well, and what are the next shows coming out? Skeleton Crew
with Jude Law.
Yeah, with Jude Law. That
might be good.
I think that's originally it was supposed to be the end of this year, but obviously that's not going to happen. So we're looking probably more 2024. I know Andor season 2 is slated for August 2024, and then The Acolyte is 2024 as well. I have to imagine one of those. Well, probably The Acolyte will get pushed back to 2025. I would think.
Probably. I mean, The Acolyte is the one I'm like most excited for, though. Which is like, I think that show actually, barring some of the comments the director has made, like the story of that could be pretty cool. So
what are the comments?
The actors in it are awesome.
Yeah. What are the comments that you heard from the director?
She said something about basically alluding to like the misogynistic fan base.
That's right.
They're all misogynists, and the only reason that they're all bent out of shape about Luke Skywalker is she basically alluded like that it's because he's a male hero, and no one in the fandom doesn't want to see female protagonists. And it's like, that's not the case at all.
False.
We all grew up with like Luke Skywalker and like love this character, and like you guys screwed it up, and so that's why we're mad. We also love Rey. Like, she's a fantastic character too. Female protagonist.
Ahsoka, Princess Leia.
Yeah, Ahsoka, female protagonist. Princess Leia. Like,
Padme.
Like the comments were, you know, and I might be slightly misquoting her a little bit, but like she alluded to a lot of that, and like it just felt a little weird to say that. And like it got just a bunch of fans all up in arms.
Yeah.
And then some unnecessary stuff, like where people were like, oh, like she's just trying to push her woke agenda, like stuff like that, which is like, I don't think that's what she's saying at all. It's just, we just want to see some good Star Wars content, whether it's a female character or a male character. I think most of us don't care as long as it's well written and it's a cool story.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
think we talked about that last time. We get
exactly
off on a wicked tangent.
Yeah,
but
we went down a deep rabbit hole.
Like the rabbit hole had a rabbit hole. And yeah, but that was, don't lose the story for the sake of the statement that you're trying to make.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the main thing, is a good story will bring in an audience regardless of the lead. So
I agree.
The story completely directs that. So story
and
should
I have,
come first. And that we were talking about that because Dave Filoni, and we were feeling, with Dave Filoni there, we feel like there's more of the potential of the story being, the focus of it. And that's what he excels in. That's what he understands. Directing, dial or screen or script writing might be a little more issue for him. Maybe not, but storytelling, we know he can nail that. So
yeah. And I got a 2.5-year-old daughter, so more strong female characters, female leads in Star Wars, I'll take it.
I'm all for it too. Like I know you guys are on the same page. I want to see a good story, and I want the character to then come with it. Like I'm all for female, male diversity. I want to see more diversity in Star Wars too. I think it would be amazing for the franchise. It's just make sure that the story makes sense with it, or build the story around it, and make it cool. I think that's all that we want. It's not this sort of misogynist fan base. There's definitely. I'm not going to say there's not those people out there.
Oh, for sure.
There are.
They're out there.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are those people in all walks of life.
Unfortunately, but yeah, it's not representative of the whole fan base.
95% of the fan base is not like that. So,
and I think that's what's somewhat upsetting about the sequel trilogy is you had during the first, during the Force Awakens, it was setting the stage for it to be a great story that had a strong female lead and minority supporting cast, because you had Finn, African American, and Poe, or is he he's Latin American. I can't think of what
Mediterranean.
No, he's from a South America. I thought he was from Argentina, or
Oscar Isaac.
Yeah. Maybe or maybe I'm thinking of mistaking him with Guatemala. Yeah. See?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you got it.
It was something. But you had your diversity right there, because the white, a white male lead wasn't part of it. You can toss him in there, and then the story kind of fell apart with the Last Jedi, and that is very upsetting because you had everything there and you jumbled it, and they'll be able to find it again. I have full faith that Filoni will be able to create that story because it deserves to be told.
Well, and going back to Zach, you wanting to see Old Republic, that's why it just seems safer to go that route. Go to a different time period, because you're not going to be messing up a character that people have, invested a lot of love for, or, like you said, Luke Skywalker, we grew up with him, that he meant a lot to us. And then the way he was treated towards the end of his story just did not seem right. It didn't seem like he deserved he got the ending that he deserved. And they didn't even bring the three main characters together in a single scene. It's how do you not do that? You had them all alive at one point, and you couldn't do it. It's such
mistreatment of the franchise. It's it's borderline criminal.
It is. It is
just the simple things like that, I've talked about the Luke Skywalker treatment a lot. It's just, to me, it's very clear that they were afraid of that character. They're we have to sort of please everyone, the millions and millions of fans that grew up with him. We got to make him feel really powerful, but we can't have him be too powerful, because he could just he would become a MacGuffin character. We could come and just kill everybody or destroy everybody. It's there's ways to handle that are really compelling from a story perspective, that George Lucas seeded in Return of the Jedi. Make him a pacifist, make him nonviolent. That would be cool. I just, the treatment that they've, of all the legacy, I would say, even Princess Leia to some extent, Obviously, like some of that was out of their control. Like the Han Solo send off I think was good. That totally made sense. But yeah, just not to have them in a scene together was sad.
Yeah, missed opportunity for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because what did you ever get? You got Chewie, Leia, and Han together, and R2D2 at one point, right? Just Luke was never a part of that.
Yeah, because they went to like the base.
The base.
And that,
Yeah.
What could have been? What could have been? Maybe in an alternate universe. String theory, right? There's tons of different universes
it's in
out
the
there.
galaxy that Ahsoka's in right now.
Right.
That's where they're hanging out, the three of them.
World between worlds. Retcon. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want any kind of retcon. That wouldn't work in Star Wars in my eyes. All right, well, I think we'll kind of close down a little bit here, wrap it up. Any final thoughts from you, Zach, on the Ahsoka show? Or
no, I mean, I think I mean, I liked the show. I'm just excited to see where they go with it. Like, it just felt like it's leading to something. I want to see what it leads to.
Oh, and Kiner did the music, right?
That's probably right.
The same guy who did Rebels and Clone Wars. I think he did the music. They need to keep him on. He does a fantastic job.
Yes.
Yeah, his
Kevin Kiner was the composer.
Okay. Yeah, him and Lars Goranson. Goranson does the Mandalorian. Both those guys are great.
Yeah, keep them on. It felt exactly like, OT type style music. It fit really in with because like you go to Andor or like Rogue One, the music was a little bit different. It was still good, but it wasn't on the same level as that Star Wars conducting music that you think of when you hear John Williams. Kiner, that it's not quite John Williams, but it's close enough in my eyes. So, all right, well, with that, I will just speak to our social media handles. So you can find us on Twitter at DetBlockAA23pod, on Instagram at detention_block_AA_23, and then our Facebook group and YouTube channels, Detention Block AA23, a Star Wars podcast. Bring us your likes, follows, downloads, subscriptions, reviews, any of it, all of it. Any little thing you do helps get our name out there in the hundreds of Star Wars podcasts that are out there. So we greatly appreciate all of you and anything you can do. So with that, any final thoughts in general in life and anything? It's good having you back, Zach, again.
Thanks for having me back.
Well, I'm having you. You're welcome anytime. I know we never created the logo when you were here yet, so your face isn't on the logo, but
yeah.
But you are as much a part of the show as we are. So
thanks. I finally had surgery. Work came down from being nuts, so happy to be back.
And season 4 will be just around the corner for us because we'll do that starting the new year. I don't know if we'll be able to get another recording in because the holidays are coming up. So, which, speaking to that, happy holidays to everyone out there. If we don't speak to you before then, in whatever way you celebrate, happy New Year. I hope everyone gets some time with their friends and family, get some time away from work, relax, and just enjoy the company. So, you guys doing anything? Are you going? Greg, I know I might see you because I'm coming back to Wisconsin for it. And I've got a trophy to give you. So, how about you, Zach? Are you going to Wisconsin or?
Yeah. Well, we're hanging around here actually for the first year ever through Christmas, and then we're going back to my wife's house in Madison on the 26th. So for a couple days, and then coming back. I'm like actually looking for it because we usually do we bounce to everyone's house in Wisconsin, like all the families all over the place. So I'm actually excited to just be here in my house for Christmas and then do a small just in-law thing for a couple days and then come back. I think it'll be really, really nice.
Awesome. Well, safe travels when you do end up traveling around, and
definitely.
And happy holidays to both of you guys. If we don't do another record next week, otherwise I'll see you guys on the other end. So with that, again, we're Detention Block AA23, a Star Wars podcast. I'm Mike, joined by Zach and Greg. And I have to mention too, go Pack Go. Playoff push, baby. Love is
We
here.
need to win 4 more games. Probably 3.
Three.
We'll probably get 3.
Yeah, we'll probably get 3. If we won all 4, we're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But if we get 3, I think we can get it in the playoffs. So
yeah, I think so too. I knew we were going to lose that Giants game, by the way. I knew the whole time. I'm like, we came off a hot 3-game streak. They're totally losing this game.
well, and look how many upsets were that weekend anyways, just throughout
I
football.
know.
So it was just a bad week. You sensed it.
It's a bad game. Just
Joe Barry
move on to the next. Yeah, he does suck. I'm on fire, Joe Barry train.
Joe, if you're listening to this,
we've been there for a while now.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. We're talking Hayden
20
Christensen.
yards
Come on
off
the
the
show.
line.
Joe Barry,
Come
if you are
on.
listening to this, you come on the show, sir. We are gonna have a discussion. All right. We are gonna have a discussion. I don't understand how you can suck at a job so bad and still keep it and get hired by other.
Well, and what makes it worse is all of his responses to the questions that he gets asked. It's like,
oh, I know.
You're not helping your case at all.
Yeah. Oh, I called the wrong. Yeah, it's awful. It's like, oh, God, I really hope they hire a new DC after this season. Like, can you imagine
maybe the
team?
Giants loss helps that.
Yeah, like this, like I firmly believe that the Packers are very, very talented, like a very talented young team. Like I'm actually very excited about the team in the future. I knew that this year was going to be kind of a messy year.
Growing pains.
Growing pains. Can you imagine
I love that show.
Maybe another draft under Gutekunst's belts, maybe a couple of veterans here and there re-signed or like brought in from other teams, and then getting rid of Barry and bringing in a legit defensive coordinator. Like that team next year would be
Bill Belichick. Bring in Bill Belichick.
People keep talking about that.
I know it's not going to happen.
No, like Bill Belichick will just retire if he loses the Patriots job.
Oh, I
would take him in a heartbeat. If he wants to be our defensive coordinator, come on over.
I saw something that they've already agreed that he's going to be gone at the end of the year.
Yeah, but we don't know what he's going to do after that. Yeah. Probably retire. My guess is
probably retire.
Whatever he wants.
But what was the other coach that was recently let go that was a defensive coordinator? Wasn't the Raiders coach, was it?
Well, Josh McDaniels, he was fired months ago, like a month ago, but he was an offensive guy.
Yeah, he was. There was another. I'm spacing on who it is, but
like a head
People
coach.
Are speculating that Robert Saleh is going to lose his job, and that's
that's who's going to come in.
No, and Saleh's not going to lose his job.
No,
the front office loves Robert Saleh.
Yeah. Greg and I and our buddy Jake, we have a text group that we are always talking Packers. And everything you said, we've been saying the same things, and we've been calling for Joe Barry. We were on for a while the train to get rid of LaFleur as well, and we're still kind of like night and day, hot and cold on that. We'll give him a little more time. He deserves a little more time.
I turned to my wife after they scored that touchdown at the end of the Giants game, and I was like, "Packers are going to lose this game." She's like, "Why do you say that?" I'm like, there's a minute 30 left in there. They will not play defense. It's too much time.
Minute 30, 2 timeouts. You only need 3 points. I mean, that game was done.
Yeah,
absolutely. The only thing would have been if
Thomas Nelson missing field goals. Just fucking kills me. He makes that's a 11-point game.
Every game he either misses a PAT or a field goal that becomes crucial in the game.
Yeah. There's at least 3 losses that they've had because he's missed a PAT or a field goal.
Well, and that tells you they're staying in every single game. That's the difference between you're the youngest team and you're 1 score away in every single game.
Except for one game, the first Lions game, they got blown out. Yeah. But every other game, they're within a few points of victory.
Then the Bears, we just blew them out. So
yeah.
But it'll be interesting. They're not going to make a deep playoff run if they get in, but maybe get that 6 seed match up against the Lions, beat them again, and get a second playoff game in.
Yeah, and then get trounced by the 49ers, but that's all right.
Yeah.
Happens
We
year.
always do. We always do.
Yeah.
But yeah, we felt the same way. We knew there was going to be a letdown game, and that Giants game was just kind of feeling like that was going to be it. So
it's kind of like, well, at least we hopefully just got it out of the way, and then we can just stack up, win out. That's my hope.
Get healthy and win out. We need to get healthy too.
And get rid of Joe Barry.
Get rid of Joe Barry. You can't do that soon enough.
He should have never made it to this season.
No, he shouldn't have. He should have been totally gone after last season. He's never had he's always a bottom 10 defense in his entire career. Why does he have a DC job? He shouldn't.
And he has the talent. How much investment have we put into the defense in every single draft?
Is so talented. I don't care what anybody says. And even like multiple national sports writers say that. This like the linebackers are good, the D line is good. You could argue maybe we need a couple like bigger smash mouth guys on the front line, I guess.
Get a little more pass rush.
Corners, if the corners were actually healthy, like we'd have probably one of the best secondaries in football. And even like the backups that like all of our starters are hurt, and like the backups have been playing really well. It's just, I don't know. I also hated the Rasul Douglas trade. Like, what are we doing?
That was like a hater traded for the Brewers. Like, just totally mess up the.
I don't know.
Made me so mad,
dude. The Packers ended up going like 3-1 following that trade. I mean, they
went the reverse route. They're like, we're going to play for him instead of having
He went to Buffalo and then immediately started picking. Just picking balls off nonstop. Like, it's just like,
it's because he was being utilized incorrectly through Barry's scheme, just like any other player.
Yeah.
But
more fucking Joe Barry is.
All right, I gotta run upstairs real quick and help my wife with something. I'll be right back.
We're logging off anyway, so you can go ahead and again, good talking to all y'all. Have a great rest of your evening, rest of your day. And we'll talk to you next time. And as always, may the force